Out front tonight, bring it on. President Biden facing down a barrage of Republican outrage over his new COVID vaccine policies that will impact up to 100 million Americans.
What is your message to Republicans who are calling your vaccine requirements an overreach, who are threatening to challenge it in court?
Have at it. Look, I am so disappointed that particularly some Republican governors have been so cavalier with the health of these kids, so cavalier with the health of their communities. We're playing for real here. This isn't a game.
He's referring to Republican governors because some of them are piling on the outrage. The governor of South Carolina, Henry McMaster, tweeting, "Rest assured, we will fight them to the gates of hell to protect the liberty and livelihood of every South Carolinian." And then there's this.
What the Biden administration is doing is government overreach, pure and simple.
My legal team is already working, and we will defend and protect our people from this unlawful mandate.
When we see elected officials violate the Constitution, we have a responsibility to fight back. And that's what we're doing. You should not lose your job just because Joe Biden is having this hissy fit.
In the halls of Congress, the response from elected officials, Ted Cruz calling it utterly lawless, Marshall Blackburn saying Joe Biden is sounding more like a dictator every day, the number 2 Republican in the House, Steve Scalise, accusing Biden of being a desperate politician abusing power. And not to be outdone, right-wing media cut to the chase.
We had to elect this rotting bag of oatmeal to get a real tyrant. I mean, that's what Joe Biden
couldn't get his act in order, and so he decided to issue a tyrannical and authoritarian order here.
Okay, time for facts and not fake calls of tyranny. Facts, in fact, that you would think the GOP would embrace, because can you believe that this actually goes all the way back to George Washington? Yes. Vaccine mandates have been part of the United States since 1777. 1777, when George Washington required his troops be immunized for smallpox. I mean, last I checked, pretty much anything George Washington did is sacred to the Republicans who are now slamming Biden for following George Washington's precedent. And now suddenly it's un-American? But let me just offer you some more. So I took you back to 1777, but I actually don't even need to do that. I could just show you what the very same Republican governors who are calling tyranny against Biden are doing themselves right now in their states. Yes. Every single state in the United States of America has a form of a mandate for certain vaccines for students. Let me just give you South Dakota, where Governor Kristi Noem, as you just heard, called Biden's plan an unlawful mandate. Well, perhaps she should look in the mirror because she actually has a vaccine mandate in her state for school children. I'll read it to you because it's right here in black and white. Her policy, her state. Any child entering school or an early childhood program in this state shall, prior to admission, be required to present to the appropriate school authority certification from a licensed physician that the child has received or is in the process of receiving adequate immunization. Goes on to list the illnesses: rubella, mumps, tetanus, meningitis, and varicella, which is, of course, the virus that causes chickenpox. That's a vaccine mandate. I guess it's okay for her, but not for Biden. I'm not sure what excuse she'd make for the George Washington precedent. But the fact is that Noem and her fellow Republicans who are stomping with outrage are hypocrites. Vaccines work. That is why South Dakota and every other state in the country requires them, has mandates for them, just like the COVID vaccines work now. Just to remind everybody what those Republican governors, of course, know full well, unvaccinated Americans are 10 times more likely to be hospitalized with COVID and 11 times more likely to die than vaccinated individuals. Caitlin Collins is out front at the White House. And Caitlin, it sounds like the president is relishing this fight with the GOP.
Well, Aaron, he was certainly expecting it. That's what his aides are saying today when he unveiled those new measures yesterday. It didn't take long before you saw those Republican governors pushing back, and the White House says that they knew that was coming. And you're also seeing the president call out these Republican governors, as you were saying. He may not always be saying their name explicitly, but it's always pretty clear who the president is talking about. And I think that's part of this broader shift that you are seeing from the president as he is growing increasingly more frustrated with these Republican governors that he thinks are standing in the way of vaccinating more Americans or encouraging more Americans to get vaccinated, but also with the people who have yet to get vaccinated. Yesterday, describing it as a failure by those 80 million or something Americans to do so. And so, yes, it remains to be seen how this fight is going to play out over this new rule for private companies, because it's still being drafted by the Labor Department. It hasn't even been officially unveiled yet. And a lot of the details still seem to be in flux as well, including how the enforcement of that is going to work, who is going to pay for those tests. If you're a worker at a company and you choose not to get vaccinated, is it you paying for it? Is the business? Those are still details that we're waiting to find out from the Department of Labor when they do unveil this in the coming weeks. But Aaron, we should note these fights may not be far from over, because of course we know the White House is not taking other measures off the table. And when we asked today if they would consider requiring a vaccine to get on a flight domestically here in the United States, something that currently of course is not required, they said they're not taking it off the table, and they would do anything that they believe would in the end help save lives.
All right, thank you very much, Caitlin. So let me go up front now to Dr. Eileen Marty, professor of infectious diseases at Florida International University, and David Frum, senior editor of The Atlantic. So Dr. Marty, you live in Florida, one of the states where the governor, well, he today called Biden's stance on vaccines a hissy fit, fighting back against President Biden's order, of course, even as things are mandated in Florida. How concerned are you about this pushback from DeSantis?
I think that we shouldn't be playing politics with something as serious as this disease. The vaccine is incredibly safe. In fact, you commented about the variolation, which was what was recommended by George Washington back in the 1700s. And I should add that he had Martha Washington in front of everyone take the variolation to show his troops that it was safe. And actually, that was incredibly dangerous compared to the vaccines we have now, which are incredibly safe and effective. And the combination of using the vaccines and the non-pharmaceutical interventions are our best way out of this. Anyone who isn't on board with that is not participating in the best citizenship that should exist in this country. And that goes for every single one of us, including the governors.
So, David, overall, and I know there are, some states where it's different, but, Americans support the vaccine mandates, and businesses really want it, right? Because it's pro-capitalist, because they don't have to, worry about all these other protections. And of course, the governors themselves that are fighting it have vaccine mandates in their own states, so it is completely hypocritical. However, they've decided that coming out and saying this and fighting Biden is the right political move, and that it's going to help them. Will they end up being right?
They are going to end up being so wrong. And I will hear the caution against playing politics, and I will drive right past it. And I'll invite people to consider, if we were not talking about this vaccine issue today, where about 70% of the country is on the president's side and about 30% of the country lines up behind the Republican governors, what would we be talking about? We might be talking about the rising price of beef, chicken, and pork, about which there's very little a president can do, but for which a president is going to be blamed. Yep. We might be talking about crime numbers, which are elevated over what they were 4 or 5 years ago. And again, there's not a lot a president can do about that, but the president would otherwise be blamed. We'd be talking about the situation on the southern border, this huge immigration surge, which is very destabilizing. We'd be talking about the terrible images we've seen from Afghanistan. I mean, almost everything else we might be talking about is a 70-30 issue in the Republicans' favor. But Biden has trapped them into talking about an issue where their base is forcing Republican office holders, including people who are pretty, Greg Abbott is something of a true believer, but Kristi Noem and Rick DeSantis, they're not true believers. This is a good thing to raise money on. It excites the Republican $20 giver, but it doesn't excite people in the suburbs, and especially women in the suburbs, who are the people Republicans need to win back. So Biden has, I'm sure maybe he's not thinking about the politics, but the maneuver he's executed is very politically powerful.
Right. I mean, just keep in mind, DeSantis is fighting to his court after court against businesses in his own states who are saying we want vaccine mandates, right? The cruise ships. They want it for their business, and he's actually fighting against business. I mean, it's the most counter GOP thing I've heard in quite some time. But Dr. Marty, if Governor DeSantis or Governor Noem, Governor Ducey, succeeds in stopping Biden's rules, what will it mean? What will the impact be in the context where people under 12 can't get vaccinated and you're not going to require the 85 million Americans who could to get it?
He's not going to succeed. OSHA has the authority, which is where this has been placed by the Biden administration to assure safety in workplaces. And already there are many OSHA mandates that employers have to meet to be in compliance with federal regulations. And already OSHA already since January has had things on the books, some of which are mandatory, some of which are recommendations regarding COVID-19. Moreover, OSHA already has rules on the books about hepatitis B vaccine, but that is something that only affects the one person who might get hepatitis, whereas being vaccinated not only protects the person who gets the vaccine, but protects everyone around them. So there's no way that he's going to win.